Coming up on Up at Noon, hear the world's best Bloodborne player talk about sinking thousands of hours into that game. Dragon Ball FighterZ is great, but not weird enough, and toy stores are closing across the nation. All that and more right now on Up at Noon Live.
Hello and welcome to Up at Noon Live. I'm your host, Brian Altana. With me is Max Scoville.
Yeah.
Up at Noon. Yeah, we did. We're in here.
Yeah.
Up at Noon is our weekly comedy variety show here on IGN. You can also watch us on Twitch, Roku, Apple TV, Xbox One, PS4, Wowza, Weeaboo, Nard,
Yep.
and Flags.
Coming soon to Crunchyroll.
We made all those up.
No, we're streaming live on a bunch of different platforms.
Yep.
I'm currently trying to log into my Twitch account. Thankfully, that is the only chat we have up on our monitor here.
Are we seeing it?
That's me. I'm not. Great job doxing me there, guys. Thanks, fellas. Real good. Luckily, I don't even know my own password. We're also on IGN.com, which now has a whole big built-in chat thing. So if you're a member of IGN, head over there, and it's it's like a nice place to kind of hang out and yell.
Yeah, please come join us. We have a really awesome show today. In a little bit, I'll be talking to Jesus Here's Toast. He is one of the most entertaining Bloodborne speedrunners on Earth. You might have seen his run at Awesome Games Done Quick. I got to talk to him for like 18 minutes because Max and I are weirdly on this Bloodborne kick.
Yeah, actually, it was watching his speedrun that made me finally go, you know what, I'm going to give this another shot, but now that I'm in there, I don't want to see any of it. So I sat out of that interview, but I'm good. It's good because I don't want to see any bosses. I want to get surprised by it. But yeah,
we're probably gonna get to that in about 15-20 minutes. So sit tight, make a sandwich. You know.
No, don't do any of. Don't just
hang out.
Just sit there.
Just
hang out. We'll get to Bloodborne in a bit. But first, we gotta talk about some big exciting news of the week. First things first. 420 turned out to be a heck of a day. That's right, because God of War is coming out that day. That's what they announced. That's gonna be alongside the Nintendo Labo. So if you want to have like a real dank afternoon. That's what you can do.
To go. Yeah.
Here's an artist depiction of what that might look like.
There's going to be oh, beautiful. Wow.
Are you seriously?
I really like this. There's going to be a weird crowd at GameStop on 420, like there always is. But specifically that day, there's going to be children showing up to buy cardboard pianos, and me. And also people buying God of War, which is also going to be me. So that's going to be a weird afternoon for me, because I'm going to go home, I'm going to build a piano. I'm going to play a few notes. I'm going to be like, that was fun.
I think that's an interesting day for sort of gaming and fatherhood side by side, or parenthood in general, because it's like, here's a game where you're like, I have to raise my son the way of the warrior. And then your kid's like, Daddy, make me the piano, make me the microscope, I want to be the robot boxer. And
it's going to be a good time.
Shut up, I'm eviscerating.
Let us know which one you're buying, if you're buying both. I wish they worked together. I wish I could play God of War with a cardboard piano or a sword.
I feel like that's really a perfect example of exactly how like broad of a spectrum gaming is.
Yep.
You know, it can be cardboard children's toys, or it can be incredibly high resolution, gorgeous, interactive narratives. So, good stuff. Good stuff. On the subject of stores and going to them, one store you won't be able to go to a whole lot anymore is Toys R Us, because they announced they are closing 180 locations. If you are, I don't know, a human being in the United States or other places who grew up or didn't grow up, that probably is sad news for you, because that was kind of like a mecca of childhood. That was a place that we all went. I remember going to Toys R Us and going to the action figure aisle or the game section when I was 8 years old, and it was like going to a city made out of things that I loved, you know?
Yeah, it was.
You were so little and you looked up and you're like, it was
just massive and sprawling, and they had everything there, and they had video games there too. Next week I think I want to get a little more personal about like what this means to me specifically. But I looked at that list of all the stores that were closing, and I did this thing where I was like, please don't be my store that I had growing up, which was the Toys R Us on Route 17 in Paramus, New Jersey, 2 towns away from where I grew up. And I went there all the time. When I got old enough to basically have my own money, I would walk down the highway and go there. I bought my N64 there, my Super Nintendo, my Super Game Boy. I bought like the display one there. If you ever bought games in the 90s, you might remember there was a weird like paper system where you had to take a tag off of a wall and bring it up to the front where there was this like bulletproof glass cubicle where a small man sat inside and sold games. I bought my Ninja Turtles there. I bought, Mad Max, Monster in My Pocket. I bought everything, every action figure ever. And it really bums me out to see these go away, because I think there's a magic importance to sort of being able to walk into a physical space and browse it and pick up something that you never would have actually found
Yeah,
yourself.
I mean, discoverability is really key there. You know, on the bright side though, I was more of a KB Toys kid, and those all died out a long time ago. So this is, I guess, less sad for me though.
KB Toys had they had the death of like a 104-year-old man. Like,
yeah,
they didn't die. They slowly went away over the course of.
they went.
10,
Yeah, they
15
went
years.
out like a crooked politician. You know,
Yeah.
things kind of went downhill for them. And you could. The writing was not on the wall, but there was a lot more writing on the price tags. It was like everything here clearance.
If you went to KB Toy Store on the very tail end of their run, you might remember picking up a toy that had a clearance sticker with a clearance sticker with a clearance sticker with a clearance sticker that basically was just like a short stack of stickers that said something like, you know, $9.99 crossed out, $7.99 crossed out, 3 for $10 crossed out, free, take it, get it out of here.
Anyway, there's an artist depiction of really the future of Toys R Us. It also explains probably why there are all those giraffes roaming around in The Last of Us, because they can't get jobs as Toys R Us mascots
That
anymore.
put a whole new narrative spin on that game and the world that we live in, and now I'm both happier and sadder. Also, that's a weird tire.
Yeah, that is. That's very odd.
Xbox One has been, I would not necessarily struggling, but they had an uphill battle since the launch of this generation of sort of convincing people what their console was and who it was for. I have one, Max has one, I think it's awesome. I don't get to play as many exclusives on it as I'd like to, but that's okay.
Yeah, but on the subject of exclusives, they announced this week they're doing a thing called Game Pass, which is basically $10 a month, and for all of Microsoft's first-party stuff, which at this point is, you know, Sea of Thieves and Crackdown and future Halo stuff, and I think State of Decay 2. Basically, if you pay $10 a month, you get it day one. It's part of the kind of being part of their club kind of thing, which is it sounds perfect. It's like you're like, oh wow, that works for them, that works for us. If they're willing to give us the games, then that's perfect. Who could possibly be mad about that? Well, stores.
Yeah.
Who sell the games.
Stores who sell games
For full price as not part of a, you know, baked-in subscription service.
Specifically, there's a store in Austria called Gameware. It's sort of like the GameStop of Austria. I don't live in Austria, so I'm going to get a couple of facts wrong here. But there's many of these stores. They have a great presence online. They have thousands, hundreds of thousands of customers. And then apparently there's a like weird floating nightmare.
I tried to really convey what's going on between the two of them, but I don't know if I did a great job with it.
I'm not sure I understand what happened here.
I think the Gameware is saying, hell no, and the
sex toy?
Xbox is like, the thing at the bottom? No. I think that's a sculpture of an elephant.
Okay.
I don't know, it's in Austria. I don't know what Austria has on the ground.
Gameware basically said to Microsoft, hey, we're not selling your consoles. Why would we? We can take that off the screen now so none of us have to.
No, I think we should keep it up there.
No, how about we get rid of it?
It's a pretty good picture.
No, I don't think it is.
I like it.
Anyway, so Gameware is refusing to sell Xbox One consoles, and it makes sense that they're doing this because they're effectively being cut out of the business. Please remove that photo, thank you.
Can we see that one more time, real quick?
Okay.
What if we did a compromise and just had half and half like that? See, I think that looks nice.
Sarash Nadiri says, do they even read the chat? Hell yeah, I do, when I don't want to look at the screen that has that borderline racist nightmare monster on it.
I don't think it's racist.
Yeah, it's a little racist.
It's googly eyes on an Xbox controller.
Yeah,
What could go wrong?
I'm not a fan of that. So anyway, this is a really interesting scenario because video game stores are sort of struggling to stay alive. If you look at GameStop here in the US, they partner with ThinkGeek, effectively turning their stores into 1/3 of a toy store. They are buying and selling used phones now. So the parameters of what a video game store or a used game store is are obviously drastically and dramatically changing day to day.
Yeah, also, I mean, what games are is sort of a moving target. I think it's interesting that games at one point were piggybacking on toy stores and now toys are piggybacking on game stores.
Yeah.
Where, I mean, it was like, yeah, come to Toys R Us and get your big wheels and your action figures and your Lego sets and maybe, you know, stop by the Nintendo section. And now it's like, come by GameStop and maybe while you're grabbing Nintendo games, maybe you want to grab a Lego set or something.
Yeah, or like a Funko Pop or something. So the really interesting thing is that, you know, game stores now effectively are conduits for consoles and accessories because those people like to pick up with their actual hands because they have to. It's not really a digital purchase. But the digital download rate is happening higher and higher and more every single year. So the actual attach rate for gamers going digital is statistic that's just getting bigger. Less and less physical copies of games are being sold. More games in general are being sold, period, but it's getting harder to track because stuff like NPD is antiquated and really only charts physical sales. And so companies have to come in and kind of report on what they're selling themselves.
Yeah, it's also, I mean, this ties into just sort of digital distribution in general, because you look at something like Bright, which is a big blockbuster movie that Netflix put out just around Christmas, and they're like, yeah, it's our biggest movie ever. It's free. If you subscribe to us, you have it. And it's like, why do you need to advertise that? It just seems, it's sort of odd, you know? It's like and we're getting this kind of on the flip side with movie passes, where people buy a subscription to go to the movies. Again, how does that, who is the middleman there? Like, where's the bottom line? And it's just kind of, I don't know, things are getting sort of disrupted and upset. And,
and it's really good for you, the consumer, right? Like, this is ultimately in your favor. The fact that you can turn on your TV and get movies from Netflix that they're making originally without having to go to a theater to see them is awesome. If you can pay a small amount of money a month or a year for Game Pass and get brand new first-party games without having to go to the store or shell out $60, that's fantastic. But there's a business aspect to all of this that will be impacted over time. We're already seeing desperation from a lot of these retailers, and I think it'll only get sort of darker and grimmer. I mean, just moments ago we talked about a massive nationwide toy store chain closing most of its stores.
And that's heartbreaking. So what fills in the blank there? Like, what takes its place? I don't know. Anyway, completely shifting gears to a thing is there's apparently a Sleeping Dogs movie in the work. If you've never played Sleeping Dogs, super good game. It's somewhere between, I don't know, GTA and Yakuza. Really fun thing. It was supposed to be True Crime Hong Kong at one point, and then it got dumped by Activision, picked up by this other company, published by Square Enix. Really good. It's on current-gen consoles. If you slept on it, no pun intended, grab it. It's usually on sale. Really good story. Emma Stone's in it too, which is cool. Apparently they're making a movie, and it's just got announced that I guess Donnie Yen's going to be in it, which is great. Donnie Yen, you might know him from a whole bunch of movies where he kicks a bunch of people's asses, or you know, from being the guy with the stick in Rogue One.
Yeah.
He was also it's.
Are you kidding me? I'm blind.
Yeah. It was really funny seeing him in Rogue One, and then immediately seeing him in like what was it, Fate of the Furious, whatever the last one was, because it's like they aged him a lot to play like an old blind monk, and then they were like, nah, let him wear like a leather jacket and be a cool guy.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's cool. I'll believe it when I see it, though. That's kind of the story with you know, with video game movies. Now, one of the big games to come out this week, Dragon Ball FighterZ.
FighterZ.
I think we're gonna eventually we'll get tired of making fun of that name, but not today. So it's got a great roster. I think it's got 24 characters at launch. This game is gorgeous. This is probably the best looking Dragon Ball fighting game I think we've ever gotten. It's got this wonderful kind of cel shaded look to it, but you know, it's got like just particle effects and 3D stuff, and you can blow up mountains. It's very exciting. I'm going to be actually on a live stream of that tomorrow on IGN with Mark Ryan, who's one of our guys who works over. He helps make the website and everything. Incredibly smart guy, but he's also just crushes at Marvel vs. Capcom.
Yeah, he's stupidly good.
A lot of similarities between MVC and Dragon Ball FighterZ. I honestly think after Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, which kind of seemed to burn a lot of people, Dragon Ball FighterZ might just swoop in and kind of pick up a lot of the people who really love that game. And the thing about it, though, is that MVC has kind of a wonky roster, especially with 3, because they started throwing in like, you're like, oh, you've got Phoenix Wright, you've got a photographer, Frank West, you've got MODOK, who's like a head in a jar, and Rocket Raccoon, and they fly around, and it's like, and they make it work, which is the cool part. I mean, the fact that Beautiful Joe is in there alongside like Nemesis from Resident Evil, that's awesome, and I love how they kind of throw the style guide out the window with that. Dragon Ball has always been pretty weird, and in the case of Dragon Ball FighterZ, they kind of combat the fact that they're not really like, it doesn't make sense for like Cell and Frieza to be fighting, so they're like, oh, there's clones involved. Like it's a very silly story thrown in there, but at the end of the day, this is a fighting game. It's about bashing your action figures together and having fun. My problem with Dragon Ball FighterZ is that so far, the roster isn't stupid enough. Dragon Ball, if you're unfamiliar, started out as a comedy manga. Like it's very goofy in the early days, and then it gets serious, and they start doing karate and throwing fire at each other and yelling. But there's always kind of this underlying current of comedy in there, and I don't think that FighterZ really leans into that hard enough. So I hope for DLC we start getting some sillier characters in there. And you know, I mean, MVC has proven that you can take silly characters and make them work in a fighting game. I mean, I think prior to people, you know, seeing Marvel vs. Capcom in action, Rocket Raccoon probably seemed like kind of a stupid character to throw against like Ryu. So, getting into it real quick, here's some DBZ characters that I want to see in the roster. Bulma. First things first, this is the first person that Goku meets aside from his grandfather. It's Bulma. She's great. She's actually like a really huge character in Dragon Ball FighterZ story. She's an inventor. How does she know martial arts? No. But you look at MVC. They've got like, I don't know. They've got like Mega Man in there. They've got like a Amaterasu. Like they've got characters who like don't really kind of fit with the rest. Bulma could be throwing capsules the whole time. She could be pulling out machine guns, getting in mech suits, or like summoning weird stuff. Like it's a video game. Use your imagination. They could do anything. But obviously they've already built a model of Bulma in the game. So if they've got her in there, maybe we'll see her pop up, and maybe she'll do even just as an assist or something. Like maybe she'll show up and help out Vegeta when he's down or so. I don't know. Mr. Satan, Hercule, as you might know him if you watch the American dub, he's arguably the worst fighter in all of Dragon Ball. He's kind of like an idiot Chuck Norris. He comes out, he does a lot of like yelling and posturing, and he's not good at fighting, but like I feel like they could do something really funny with that. Like how would it look if he's fighting down against like literal gods on the screen? But if nothing else, he's a lot of fun. So I think he'd fit in there really well. If there's an opposite to Goku, it's Yajirobe. They're both kind of like woodland simpletons who eat a lot. But Yajirobe doesn't actually want to be there. He's kind of a jerk.
What's he munching on in this shot? Is that a donut?
I think that's like what is it? Like a beef ball? Like some kind of dumpling? I don't know.
Sounds delicious.
But his whole deal is everyone's like, oh, you guys all, the world is in danger. We need your help. And he's like, yeah, that sucks. I just bought a new car. I don't really want to do that. And he'll occasionally show up and save the day, but like he does a few times actually show up and fight. But for the most part, he's just a pain in the ass. But great character nonetheless. And I'd love to see him in there. Talk about maybe sort of some problematic faves here. Mr. Popo, not the most culturally sensitive character to look at in 2018, but he's a contender. This dude he kicks some ass in the show. Yeah, Brian doesn't watch the anime, but
yeah,
maybe we don't need Mr. Popo. Maybe it's I don't know.
Maybe they can do something.
But I mean, he beats the crap out of Trunks and Goten, so he's a tough character, and he's like a genie. So I don't know. Now, one character from very early Dragon Ball who showed up a bunch in Super is Emperor Pilaf, who's sort of like a blue Kim Jong-un, sort of. He's got his weird temple that he lives in, and he's got his henchmen, and he's just angry all the time, and he's like a weird dude. He shows up a lot in robots, or he'll just like have like a missile.
It's weird to see like the clown ruffle neck thing outside of clown attire, like he's just wearing it to work.
Yeah, he's like a little emperor baby.
Okay.
But his whole deal is like there's a bunch of times when
like a boss baby.
He's kind of a boss baby, yeah. But there's one part in like early Dragon Ball where he blows a kiss at Bulma or something that they're holding hostage, and everyone's like, oh no, he blew a kiss, and this like heart comes out, and it's kind of like Sonya Blade had a move like that in the original Mortal Kombat.
Right.
Remember that? Like the Sonya's kiss. And, but the idea of this gross little like gnome being like, oh, I'm the Emperor, I'm gonna give you a kiss, and then like, shooting that at Vegeta or somebody and them just like taking damage. Like that's the kind of silliness I want to see in Dragon Ball FighterZ.
Hell yeah.
Oolong is
what are these things?
He's a perverted pig who can shapeshift, but only for short amounts of time, because he dropped out of shapeshifting school.
What?
Dragon Ball's great, man. Early Dragon Ball gets super weird. So he's like a weird little pervert talking pig who apparently like has like a Maoist hat for some reason. But his whole deal would his whole fighting style would be turning into different things and then stealing their moves, but then like having to like switch back because
he didn't make it to graduation at shapeshifting school. That seems like the easiest school to pass. You just send your friend in to do the job for you.
They go into that, man. It's weird. They dig into that. Yeah. There's another one, a cat that can shapeshift who actually did graduate, who's like way better at shapeshifting. And also, he'll like turn into a woman, but he'll still have that face, and people are like, "You're not good at this, are you?" Here's a good one. Goten and Trunks, obviously they fused together and they formed Gotenks, who is in Dragon Ball FighterZ. But before that, they turned into Mighty Mask, which is when they stacked on top of each other and tried to sneak into an adults martial arts tournament, like kids going into a movie theater.
So this is like two kids trying to get a bank loan?
They like beat up an adult and they take his clothes and they dressed up and they poked little eye holes.
So it's like Little Rascals? Why do you poke eye holes? What does he need to see?
So he could see who to kick. Yeah, Goten's on the bottom there.
Oh, okay.
What's great though is that like whoever, I think they're up against like Android 18, and she just like, you know, she beats them by just cutting them in half. But this is at like a public tournament, so it looks like she just eviscerates this human man, and everyone's like, "You killed him! You cut him in half!" And they're like, "Actually, on closer inspection, that was 2 children disguised as an adult." So let me get some weirdness in my Dragon Ball game.
Hell yeah!
I like it.
Do you want to dress up like this one day?
I think it would be bad for one or both of our shoulders.
I get dibs on top bunk.
I don't want that. All right, so Tao Pai Pai, who's you know, mercenary Tao, he shows up initially as kind of this, like he trains Chaozu and does he train? I forget. He shows up in early Dragon Ball, but he's got this move, the Dodon Pa, which is like it's all named after weird Chinese food, but like.
Is he like a robot uncle?
Yeah, he gets his ass kicked by Goku, but then he comes back as like a cyborg in Dragon Ball Z as like a random filler episode, and he's got.
Can he shoot lasers from his eyes?
I think he can. Sweet. He's got like a knife hand, but like he's just like a cool design. It's like I love that mix of like, hey, what if we took like this kung fu dude, but then we gave him like night vision goggles like Buffalo Bill. I like that. So I don't know. He's kind of a throwaway.
He's great.
Yeah. So moving on. One character who shows up in
Is this every Dragon Ball character?
This is not every. We're almost done there. We're getting in the weeds here. I like the really weird parts of Dragon. I like when it gets just. I like the deep cut nonsense. If you watch Dragon Ball Z, there's a lot of filler in there. There's a lot of nonsense that doesn't really add to the story. One part of that is Gohan he has to do his homework. He has to get homeschooled, but his mom, who wants him to be like a really good student, hires this like child whipping man, this like S&M's tutor, who straight up like whips him. And like this is like an incredibly small, like strong child who like has a pet dinosaur, and you know his father saves the Earth all the time. And the guy comes in and starts beating the kid with a whip. And I think eventually he beats Mr. Shu's ass, but really Mr. Shu is like a cruel, abusive tutor, and I don't know. If you got Phoenix right in a fighting game, I think that you can have like a guy who hits a child with a whip, because that's scary.
That's a weird sentence that you did there.
Yeah.
The whole thing.
We do. Like, there's a lot of times for weird sentences. There's all. It's a cartoon about the men named after food or from space, and they all kick each other. Okay. Anyway,
no, there's more.
Famous episode. Goku's ordeal. Goku and Piccolo have to go get their driver's licenses because Goku's wife is mad at her husband for being an unemployed layabout.
Okay, all right. How many characters
that is an underrated character. She's a very aggressive driving instructor. There aren't enough female characters on the roster, or really in Dragon Ball in general.
What would her moves be?
Driving a car.
The parallel park?
Aggressive driving. She's a very dangerous driver. She's got road rage.
Wait,
she drives
why?
all over
But
the
she's
place.
a driving instructor. Okay, all right.
She'd have a car. That would be her weapon, is the car. She'd fly the car all over the screen, hit them with the car. I think it's a good idea.
Okay.
Now, finally, just really as an ode to people who really pay attention to Dragon Ball, there's one character who I think everybody probably maybe remembers and who should or shouldn't be in Dragon Ball FighterZ, and that is, of course, that farmer who shoots Raditz in the first episode.
Okay,
He comes out and he's like an ostrich farmer, and he's got a gun, and this man lands in his field and he shoots him, and the guy catches the bullet and then flicks it back at him, and he dies. But I like the idea of this fighting game that just has like a random farmer with a gun in it alongside all these men who have fire for hair, and they can blow up planets and fly.
This is like if I did a segment on a Star Wars game that I want, and I want it to play as a mouse droid.
This is literally the same segment as when we were like, heroes we won in Battlefront 2, and we were like, Malakili the Rancor Keeper.
Yeah, but you're like
gag.
Goku's dentist, Bulma's hairdresser.
We totally did that with Battlefront 2. It's the same.
Fair
it's
enough.
The thing. We have brain problems, and we like really weird stuff in video games.
Well, Max, hopefully they put all of those wonderful weird drawings of like uncles and robots and driving instructors in that game that you're playing, and then people return it to GameStop and they're like, why did you do that? You and I are playing Bloodborne right now. Many of our audience have never stopped playing Bloodborne, which I've got to thinking is probably in my top 3 games of all time. I beat 2 bosses this morning, and I felt like $1 million, but then I felt even worse the other day when I got to watch the Awesome Games Done quick run by Jesus Here's Toast, a man who has inspired many to play Bloodborne more, and has inspired me to realize I'll never be as good as him. But I got to talk to him because his story is fascinating, so let's take a look. Hey everyone, it's Brian Altano from Up at Noon, and today I'm joined with Zeus, an incredible speedrunner who I just watched dominate his run in Bloodborne in Awesome Games Done Quick, a really awesome charity that just happened last weekend. Hey Zeus, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, man. It's good to be here.
I have to immediately just compliment you on your beard, because it's incredible.
I appreciate it. And the beard thanks you as well.
Yeah, of course, it's sentient. So Bloodborne is, right off the bat, one of my favorite video games of all time. And I think I love that game because I almost gave up on it a lot. As many do because it's brutally difficult. But I watched your stream over the weekend, which was, and correct me if I'm wrong, 90 minutes, basically boss rush mode. You didn't really spend a lot of time grinding or leveling up. You didn't go looking for Molotovs or anything like that. You went from boss to boss and you killed each and every one of them with style and finesse and very, very few deaths. And in an attempt to basically win a world record and raise money for charity. Is that correct?
That's basically correct. There were a few more deaths than I would have liked. The RNG wasn't particularly on my side. That one Reborn was particularly strong. I've never encountered anything like that. But that's basically it. The speedrun is so optimized at this point that you basically just run from boss to boss. If there happens to be an item that'll help you along the way, you may take a second or two to go out of your way to pick it up. But it's so optimized, the world record's so good that you have to just go from boss to boss. And that's it.
That's it. So Bloodborne, obviously 2015, PlayStation exclusive, From Software. They have a history of making brutally difficult games. This one specifically, I think, adds a level of sort of terror to it that some of the other Miyazaki games don't even come close to approaching, although they all have incredibly terrifying character design and bosses and stuff like that. What's your history with this game? Did you play it day one? Did you immediately lock into this one?
Oh, definitely. I was going to a store day one to pick it up. I had to make sure I got the Steel Art Book edition. The first two stores I had didn't have it. I got it at the third store finally. I've been playing it. Honestly, when it came out with this game, I played more Demon Souls and Dark Souls, probably a few thousand hours in each, just a ton of PvP. When Dark Souls 2 and this game came out, I was already working, so I didn't have too much time at that moment to put into it. But I did do about 3 or 4 playthroughs, maybe over the course of a month or two. It wasn't until about a year and a half ago where I picked it up and started speedrunning the game and just playing it pretty much 5-6 days a week and then really grinding it. That's something you could only do on, Twitch.
Oh yeah, of course. And Twitch is something you only started really kind of connecting with a couple years ago, right? Or I think most people did, but when did you find Twitch?
My story is I was actually watching a streamer called Elias on YouTube for a long time, since his Dark Souls 2 days. And one day on one of his videos, he mentioned Twitch. So I typed in twitch.tv/Elijaz and I found his stream. It happened to be on at the same time. And I thought it was cool. It was a live stream of video games. I really had no idea that this existed. And I watched him for maybe a few days before he mentioned someone else called Witwix. And I was like, who is this guy? So I type in twitch.tv/Witwix. Lo and behold, there's other people on the website. I thought twitch.tv/Elias was just his own website for streaming. And then it just opened my mind. And I was like, wow, this is unbelievable. This is something I want to do and get in on. And it was just kind of the perfect timing because I had a countertop and cabinet manufacturing business, and because of landlord issues, decided to shut it down and take a little bit of a break. So I just went right into it, and luckily I got a little bit of support early on, and we've just been rolling since.
I think that's like so inspiring to people who's like, because you're gonna create an army of people like that as well. I think like kids are gonna watch your AGDQ stream and they're gonna be like, how do I do that? And then they're gonna start and like that's the really
honestly the amount of people who've contacted me just recently for strats on bosses and the amount of people who've come in and started speedrunning and playing the game before GDQ. If you look on playing Bloodborne, maybe when there was a big streamer playing, it would have maybe a couple thousand views. But when nobody was really streaming it, it wouldn't have many viewers.
Right.
And now there's a lot more people playing it, and it's really great to see that the community is thriving because it's an unbelievable game. It's literally my favorite game, and I think it's one of the best games, if not the best game ever made.
I totally agree. Yeah, I was actually talking about that with a friend the other day. How Bloodborne is probably like a top 3 game of all time for me now, and I'm replaying it as we speak, which was cool and sort of serendipitous. I started replaying the game and then someone tipped me off to your stream. I watched your stream and I had this weird interaction where I was sort of like, I went from being like, oh, I'm really good at Bloodborne to, oh my God, this is top tier. So do you have a history of speedrunning? Like, was this something you did as a kid? Like, did you sit down in front of friends and be like, I'm really awesome at Super Mario Brothers?
Well, I will say this. I grew up with the original Super Mario and then Super Mario 2, Super Mario 3, Sonic 2. When I was younger, those were the games that I played the most. So looking back on it, those are speed-oriented games. I just try to go through as fast as I can. Then there was a period in games where I liked probably like Final Fantasy X kind of games, and the speed sort of left me. That's when Demon Souls came in. And I just started PvPing in that game. The PvP in Demon Souls and Dark Souls was great. And I liked doing it in different areas. So what I would do is I'd go through the game, I PvP someone, kill the boss, PvP someone in the next area, kill the boss. So I would go through it kind of quickly. I wasn't speedrunning. I had no idea speedruns even existed at the time. But looking back on it now, I can say I was probably doing a little bit faster. And I really just started with Bloodborne a year and a half ago. My first speed run was probably 2 hours, 5 minutes. I did 3 weeks of practice before that. And it's just been getting my time down since. My best time right now is 1:10:20. So
oh my God.
I've been able to put like 50 minutes on that.
Dude, I spent like 1:10:20 in the Forbidden Woods last night, just like fighting a bunch of snake dudes, like just like running around in fear. So how many hours do you think you've put into this game so far?
3,000.
No way. 3,000?
Yep.
Dude.
I've been playing for a year and a half, 6 days a week, 8 hours a day.
Oh my God.
Pretty much Bloodborne. This has been what I've been doing.
And so you don't feel like burned out by it or anything like that? You're still...
Oh, I've gotten burnt out at times, and I've done different things. Like, honestly, the past few months have just been practice really for GDQ.
Right.
So I've been doing some BO4, I've been doing just safe strats, I've been not resetting my runs, just continuing. So honestly, speedrun-wise, I'm slower than I was maybe a few months ago because of all this stuff that I just, trying to survive is not necessarily what you want when you're trying to be as fast as possible.
Right.
There's different strats involved. So it's just been, I have to relegate between those differences. So I've had a lot of different things that I've done in between. There's a few different types of runs. When I get mad, I might play something else. I played Mario Odyssey for a few days.
That's a nice break from the nightmare of Bloodborne.
I got my PB right after I played it. So you got one thing that I will say about myself is I probably run the game too much early on. Like I grinded in situations where I should have just stopped and played something else. But I'm not mad about it because, I played Bloodborne 3,000 hours and I've had fun. And looking back on it, I'm happy.
Can I ask you then, does the game still scare you at all? Do things still catch you off guard? Do things still pop out at you in any way?
I'm doing a lore run right now where I'm going through and doing all the quests and getting all the dialogue. And there's some situations, some noticeable traps that I'm not really familiar of because I go in different areas. Yeah. And a few of them have gotten me. And it's fun to experience deaths like that. Like I said I fought the hardest thing before in the game, the Bloody Crow of Cainhurst. Fighting that guy, I don't normally get to do it. So getting whacked by him a few times, it's a nice change of pace.
One of the things that I really loved about your run that just completely fascinated me was a lot of the skips. And I think that's something that's you've cultivated, the community is cultivating. People are finding weird ways to get around that game. And for people that haven't really played Bloodborne, you can't jump in that game. There isn't really, there's a roll into a hop, sort of.
There is, if you're sprinting. Yeah. See, one thing about the controls in the game that drive people mad. If you have to hold circle to sprint, circle is also dodge. But if you're holding circle while you're sprinting and you try to dodge, you'll get a jump. Yeah. And the jump has no iframes, so that'll get you killed so many times. Yeah. And the jumps aren't really real jumps. There's one skip, Yahargul skip. I'm phasing through a fence, and people say you're breaking the game. But in reality, I'd really just be able to climb over the fence. It's probably about 3.5 feet tall, but there's no option to do that. So we got to get around. We have to perform some shenanigans.
Are you justifying skipping in a narrative sense, in that you're like, well, the hunter could totally climb over that fence. That's fair.
Exactly. I use it as a joke because a lot of people, they think, oh, you're skipping a part of the game. Well, the skips in this game are harder than a lot of the bosses. Right. Sewer skip, YOLO Lunarium Key skip, Yahargul skip, Lecture Hall skip, which we call Luxure Hall skip, because it doesn't matter how good you are, you just need Miyazaki to give it to you. Right. you have to be incredibly precise to get them. And then on top of that, you also have to be a little bit lucky. And you have to deal with that. It's literally harder to perform the skips than it is to go around them.
Now, is it possible, for reference, to explain these skips, you're sort of doing that like weird roll ollie hop thing that we were just talking about, which is imprecise to begin with, into the top of like a fence or a wall, and you're sort of clipping through some stuff, you're kind of glitching through things. Is it possible, and what this allows you to do, obviously, for those of you at home who haven't seen it, it allows you to sort of move around the game in a different frequency, and so that you fought the cleric beast as like your 7th or 8th boss or something like that, whereas like for me, that's the first dude you got to fight. So have you ever like gone through one of these skips and then found yourself in a place where the game just locks you out and you have to restart your entire save file?
Oh, definitely. In Fishing Hamlet, if you screw it up, you could actually just get stuck in the wall. You could fall down and just drop for about 45 seconds before the game will kill you.
Oh my
There's
God.
just nothingness there.
Wow.
Yahargul skip, which I was talking about, you phase through the fence. Most of the time you'll get it fine, but sometimes you'll just phase through the column that you usually land on, and you'll just fall through and die. And there's no reason for it. It's just sometimes that happens.
Right.
So there's a lot of, and sewer skip is the hardest skip. That first one where you go onto the boxes, you jump onto the ledge, then you plunge onto the fence and walk it. That's the hardest skip in the game. In order to be able to do that consistent, it probably took me about a month of practice just to do it over and over and over again. A lot of the skips are really hard.
Dude, it's so funny because like I tried a bunch of these after watching your stream, and I just looked like the biggest idiot because I'm just like rolling and flailing into walls and bumping into stuff, and I'm like, Zeus does it really well. I could do the skip too. I think it's so interesting that this stuff's coming together. Is this sort of like a balance of you finding things and the community finding things, and everyone just sort of working in synchronicity to help?
Oh yeah, it's
out?
a whole community thing. Like, as far as skips, I don't look for skips. There are other people who look for skips. Some runners look for skips, and some people who don't even run the game look for skips. My contributions will be like details in fights, like the orphan bait, things like that, little instant pickups. So every runner has, I guarantee, every runner in this game has contributed something to this run. And even before me, I started late. So there were a bunch of people who just created the foundation of these runs, and we're just building on that from there. So it's 100% a community sort of thing. It's just something that a lot of people have done over and over and over since the game has been released. So like no one person can take credit, although some people deserve a lot more credit than others because they found more stuff.
I love that because I mean I think inherently speedrunning feels like a competitive community, and it is, but there is that collaborative.
Oh, it's very competitive.
Yeah, but there is that collaborative nature of it too, of people being like, I have this, and they bring it all to the table to sort of like help everybody get a little quicker.
Oh, exactly. Most people in the community are willing to share strats, and anytime somebody comes in, they ask me what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. I'll do a tutorial for a boss fight for anybody. There's no reason to have secret information in this.
Yeah.
Otherwise, like with NASCAR, any sort of race, everybody's running on the same track. You have access to the same equipment. If you get a world record with a new strat, it's great, but also like you're not running on the same track as everyone else. So it lessens it a little bit, and to the point where other people have to catch up with the new strats.
Right. Well, I think that's kind of awesome because I mean, by nature, you are publicly showing off whatever new stuff you're pulling off. And then people are watching it and they're going like, oh, I can do that. They're taking notes and stuff like that. So yeah, I think that's really cool. Awesome Games Done Quick is a really fantastic charity, for those who don't know, that brings together a bunch of speedrunners, professional gamers, really entertaining people. And I think what really I found incredible about your stream was you have a great balance of not only a great personality while you're playing, you're also incredibly good at the game, but also you're positive about it. And this is a game that specifically during your run started killing you a lot more than I think you probably would have hoped, to the point where people were even donating money based on deaths, which is sort of rubbing salt in the wound, but ultimately good for the cause. How do you stay focused and positive in a scenario like that when it starts to feel like it's slipping away?
This is my job, man. I'm here. I looked at GDQ as my Super Bowl. You know, I've been practicing for it for a few months. Just because the other team scores doesn't mean I'm going to stop.
It's true.
You just got to keep going. And the Bloodborne in general, the first 5 bosses, you know, like I got some rough stuff, but I dealt with it. I got the two skips that are super hard to get live on a run, and then to die in my first death the way I did, I'm honestly happy about it, because when I say that kind of RNG doesn't happen, it really doesn't.
Right.
It shows what Bloodborne is, and you just keep on, no matter what happens in your life, there's a poem, I'll say it. I've been scarred and battered, my hopes the wind done scattered. Snow has frizzed me, sun has baked me, looks like between 'em they done tried to make me stop laughing, stop loving, stop living. But I don't care, because I'm still here. That's it. Langston Hughes. Just keep on moving, guys.
Yeah.
Just keep on moving.
Man, I love that attitude. I think it's infectious, and I think it's fantastic, especially in the video game community that needs more positivity when it comes to stuff like that. Zeus, last question for you. Bloodborne 2, it's something everyone in the world who's played Bloodborne wants. What do you want from this game from the perspective of somebody who's played the original for 3,000 hours? What would you want from a Bloodborne sequel?
Personally, if I get what I want, and now I know exactly what's coming because I've signed a non-disclosure agreement with From Software. Trust me, I know what's coming. But I can't tell you what it is. But if I were to get what I wanted, I would actually want a new IP. My favorite games in the series are Demon's Souls, Dark Souls, Bloodborne. I would like to see another Miyazaki standalone game, see what he's coming up with, give him whatever he wants and let him go. If they are making Bloodborne 2, I would prefer it to be happening at the same time in a faraway land with different characters. I don't want to see like Lawrence 3.0 or I don't want any sort of that stuff. There was some of that stuff in Dark Souls 3, and I would just like a whole new game with all new enemies, all new experiences, all new traps. That's what I would want. Bloodborne to me literally is the best game of the modern generation. So it'd be hard to match it, even though I know that they can. I think it would be easier to match it with a new IP.
Awesome. That is the perfect answer, and I'm 100% with you. Zeus, where can people find your work and check out your streams?
It's Jesus Here's Toast at twitch.tv, and that's just it. It's HeyzeusHerestoast.
Perfect. Yeah, we'll pop it up on the screen too. And make sure to check out the awesome Games Done Quick stream that Toast did, or Zeus did, or Jesus Here's Toast. I'm not going to get into your name because I think there's a lot of secrets behind it, and I want to leave those secrets to be secrets.
I'm a man of many mysteries.
I can tell. They're all hidden in the beard. Zeus, thank you so much for joining us here at IGN. Congrats again on your awesome stream and for doing great work for charity and for kicking ass at Bloodborne, one of the hardest games of all time and one of the best.
Thank you so much for having me, man. It was a pleasure.
I'll see you soon,
Have a great
man.
day.
Yeah, you too.
Take it easy.
And welcome back, and thank you to Zeus for talking to me and sharing his story with us. That was just so incredibly cool. Again, if you haven't seen his AGDQ run, please go watch that. It's just stunning, just mesmerizing, just an incredible dude.
So we said in the headline that he's the #1 Bloodborne player. Is there any way of actually gauging that?
Well, I would say, and I'm cheating here, but like in terms of like pure raw skill, that's always going to be up for debate. I think in terms of skill multiplied by entertainment value, he's far and away #1. That dude is just electric. So it's really, really cool to see him. And Zeus, thanks for joining us, and thank you to everyone from his Twitch chat who joined us over here as well. Bloodborne's a really cool thing in that it's terrifying and off-putting, and it pushes back a lot. And it specifically, I think, kills people very early on and scares them away for good. That happened to me a couple years ago. I did an entire rant on Podcast Beyond about how I almost quit my game of the year. And Max, I think you were pushed away almost immediately for it.
So I went back. Like I had a weird thing. It was watching Zeus's Games Done Quick run. Like I don't know. I've been meaning to go back into that game because I played a little bit and I didn't get it, you know, like I got my ass kicked a few times and I kept playing and I was like, this is really gorgeous and I like the world and it feels good, but it's frustrating.
Right.
And I didn't stop to kind of like ask you like, what do I do next or whatever. I just kind of, I mean, we had other games to play. There's other stuff to do.
Well, it's a punishing world, and then I would say that the audience around it isn't exactly nice when the two biggest words you hear are "get good."
Yeah,
and I mean, it sort of pushes people out the door, right?
I think there's also more than one ways to get good too. That was a really
more than one way to skin a cat.
That was like a busted up driveway of a sentence there. But no, I had a recent thing. It's January. It's a crappy, gross time of year. It's the winter. I personally get really depressed this time of year. I know a lot of other people do. It's gross outside for the most part, and there's less daylight. And
there's also this weird pressure to reinvent the wheel and start anew and turn over a new leaf, and things are going to be different and better now.
And then you're like
settle into a funk and a
you're
malaise.
like Christmas is over. You're like, what do you look forward to besides just summer? So I was in like a really foul mood like a few weekends ago, and I was just trying to find something that made me feel something. You know, I was in that kind of like those doldrums of just really being kind of both bored but also just down on everything. I watched Mother, the new Aronofsky movie, which is like brutal and horrifying, but also I was just like, it was fine. I rewatched End of Evangelion, which is one of the most just like harrowing, like just nightmarish things ever animated. And then the next day I was like, kind of rolled out of bed, and I pulled up the Games Done Quick stream, and I was watching Zeus playing, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to give Bloodborne another shot. And I jumped back into it, and I think you texted me and gave me like a few pointers on like what to pick, what class to do, how to go about it, and like the thing about Bloodborne is it doesn't tell you how to play it, and it's very much, and I like that because it's very much like old video games where you have to talk to someone, you have to communicate with a friend about it, and you're like, oh, no, you can't level up unless you go and encounter the cleric beast.
Yeah,
like
or you can find an item or something like
sure,
that.
Yeah,
I always end up going to the cleric beast and dying.
It's kind of buried, but there's a weird thing where I typically, I don't really like it when games just kick my ass. Like, it's just not really fun for me. Like, I like a challenge here and there, but I'm more fond of like puzzle challenges than I am like kind of like twitchy like reflex-based stuff because I'm a giant gangly incompetent moron. But in the case of Bloodborne, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna keep doing this. I'm gonna keep grinding. I'm gonna keep playing with it, and that is the most rewarding game. And it completely helped me just get through my funk. Like I'm, obviously still get down here and there.
Yeah.
People talk about like using games to cope with depression or with anxiety or whatever. But in this case, it's funny because it interrupted how I was feeling. Like it was a very abrupt distraction. And it's kind of funny because the whole thing in Bloodborne is you shoot something point blank with a blunderbuss and it's staggered and it kind of like reels back and it's like, what was I doing again? And it kind of did that to how I was feeling, and that was really cool. Usually with with depression or whatever, I'm like, and I recommend this to other people. If you can't see straight, you're sad and horrified and you just not in good spirits and nothing seems fun. Like get your head stuck in a book. Games are good too, but occasionally, the game will be like, a wizard has taken over the forest. You must fight him to save the world. And you're like, who cares?
Yeah.
But in the case of Bloodborne, everything is awful in that game.
Yeah.
Everything is so disgusting. And I think there's that like, go to your happy place and then you'll feel better maybe. Bloodborne is the least happy place I've ever seen. Yharnam is like it's just a burlap yeast infection of a town. It's horrible.
Well, it's
the worst place.
It's just it's an awful nightmare. There's this sort of like misery loves company aspect of sadness and depression and being in a funk or a malaise in general. And that's that like people do nudge you to be like, go watch the Muppet movie, watch a Pixar film, like cheer up.
Yeah.
And you're like, no, maybe sometimes it's good to be a tourist in a world that's worse than yours.
No, it's like that logic of like going in the pool or the hot tub. Like if the pool is too cold and the hot tub's too hot, you get this Goldilocks effect where if you get into one and you get used to it, then you get in the other and it's like, whoa! In the case of Bloodborne, it's like if I'm feeling miserable and I look outside and it's cloudy and rainy and overcast and I'm like, I don't want to go outside. It's crappy outside. And I could watch like, I don't know, like happy vacation movies or whatever and be like, oh, look at how nice, like feel good stuff.
Yep.
But instead I'm like, here's a man with a pitchfork who's trying to kill me. Here's like just a disgusting like horse dog that's gonna rip my neck out.
Screaming wolf
Everything
woman.
in that game screams at you. It's so awful. And
so
I get in there and I'm like, this is a horrible place. And I'm like, my hands are shaking and it's jittery and I'm not really depressed anymore. I'm just kind of distracted by
because
how I'm engaged.
Because you're feeling something, which is what I think that game is so tremendously phenomenal at, in that like when I play Mario Odyssey, there's achievement and there's joy, and I play Breath of the Wild and there's sort of like exploration and adventure, peeking around every corner. Bloodborne has a tension and a fear to it, this sort of palpable psychotic terror to it that you can incrementally overcome because your character becomes stronger and you become more versed with the world and more nuanced with its language, and then all of a sudden you're overcoming obstacles that seemed insurmountable, and you're getting good, and you're getting better.
No, exactly.
And you're getting better
Honestly,
personally.
the most healthy thing in the world would be if I was like, I don't feel well, I should go running, because running gives you, it's exercise, you get endorphins going. But I didn't feel like going outside, so I went to Yarnum, the worst place. And suddenly, looking outside and it's rainy and gray, it looks downright upbeat compared to that like awful street full of pitchfork men and that one guy with
the first street with 20 dudes.
Yeah, that guy who looks like Animal, who's got like the piece of a board. He's like he's the last dude you always kill. But I played the game and I got hooked. It got its hooked into me. And
they're all negging you too. They're like, I found beast. And away! And then there's those guys where you kill them and they're like, oh, I found beast.
Yeah.
It's so good.
I mean, it was a wonderful experience, and I just, I think that the effects of using games or escapism to cope with mental illness, everything in moderation, including moderation.
Yeah.
But if you're having one of those awful wintry days and you need to get out of something, maybe don't play like a pretty video game. Play the ugliest, nastiest video game, and suddenly everything else seems like a beautiful sunshine, nice day compared to just that awful dog.
Let us know what you use to help you get through this time of year funks, or the funks in general that you might get into, whether that be games, movies, books, toys, action, for anything. Max, first of all, I'm glad you're doing a little bit better. Second of all, selfishly, I'm incredibly excited that I get to talk to my best friend about one of my favorite video games, because it's like really cool that we're texting each other and I'm like, did you get up to the wolf woman yet? And you're like, no, I fought the horse skeleton. It's so great.
Something purple made me go into the sky and explode for no reason.
The other day, before work, I killed 2 Bloodborne bosses and went to the gym and came back and had steak and eggs. And I was telling you, I got to work and I was like, I feel like I can catch bullets in my teeth today. Like, I'm unstoppable. Like, you'd have to hit me with a pitchfork to kill me, which is what they try to do in that game.
There's a lot of pitchforks in there.
Video games have been helping people for a very long time. Some of them have been with us forever, and others have gone away. Some have gone the way of the Duke Nukem, specifically a monstrous, womanizing man.
Okay.
An antiquated old relic of the 90s video game universe.
Duke Nukem, can we,
Yeah. So Duke Nukem came back a couple years ago thanks to Duke Nukem Forever, a game that took 17 years to create and didn't really make a lot of people very happy. You could throw turds in the game and womanize anywhere, so that was fun for some.
There were parts of the game that were very good, like picking up poop, but mostly it was a bad game.
That said, in the sort of pantheon of iconic video game characters, he's one of them. Like it or not, Duke Nukem is a memorable, iconic video game mascot of sorts, and there are talks of the Duke returning in film form as played by none other than rapper John Cena.
Rapper?
Yeah, I'm calling him a rapper.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah, the rapper John Cena.
Okay, John
known
the rapper
for his
Cena.
rapping.
You can't see him except live in concert when he does his raps.
When he does his raps in the ring.
Yeah, so John Cena's in talks to play the Duke Nukem himself, which fits. And it also gives me a lot of hope for what they could do with this movie. There's a way to make a good Duke Nukem movie, and I think that the worst thing that could happen is that nobody who's actually making it realizes that.
Yeah.
Now here's the thing about John Cena is initially I think I looked at the guy and I was like, he seems like his ears stick out and he's got way too many muscles. I don't really know how I feel about him. Over the years, he's really grown on me. Like, he seems like a pretty down-to-earth dude. I think wrestlers kind of get run through the ringer of like learning how to actually interact with the public and relate. Recently, a couple years ago, he put out this like 4th of July video that was like, hey everybody, it's me, John Cena, and I want to talk about being an American. And this video was him going on about how like, the whole thing about America is, I don't know, maybe respecting other people's beliefs, whether they're, like Filipino transgender people or they have different political views or whatever. Basically, he's being like, hi, I'm the most muscular man you'll see today. I will put you through a table. Be respectful of your fellow human beings, otherwise you're a disgrace as an American, which is, I mean, that's kind of what, some sliver of Duke Nukem is kind of about respecting the American way, but most of the time he's like, hey, I got the Olsen twins in my hotel suite, and I want to have sex with them.
Quick.
On the other hand, John Cena's also proven that he's pretty funny. Like, he can play against type, he can really kind of poke fun at the kind of the muscle-headed man that he is. He was in Trainwreck with Amy Schumer. Not wild about Amy Schumer, but John Cena in that movie was hilarious. Mm-hmm. His whole deal was he kept making like really like homoerotic threats, which I think he like gets in a fight in the movie theater with the guy, and he's like, I'm gonna kiss you, bro, or I can't even say some of the stuff he says, but really funny in that movie, and obviously kind of being self-aware and poking fun at himself. Now, what always drew me to Duke Nukem as a series, aside from it, the Duke Nukem 3D is a fantastic video game. I think that gets lost in kind of in the shuffle of how many bad Duke games there are. But Duke Nukem's always been kind of a joke. Yeah. Like, he's always been sort of stupid. He's kind of been like a bootleg character. He's got all these one-liners he's famous for, like, it's time to kick ass and chew bubblegum and I'm all out of gum. He misquotes movies. Like
he's sort of like a Bruce Willis at his dumbest crossed with an American version of Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
With a lot more sort of patriotic bravado, but in a completely missing the point kind of way. I mean, he's the kind of guy that would buy truck nuts for his car.
Totally, and they'd make fun of that, and you know, I mean, they had the Balls of Steel edition of Duke Nukem that I think came with actual like meditation balls that were made of steel. I get it, but you gotta make fun of Duke Nukem if you're gonna be making this movie. It can't be completely like, here's a guy you should respect because he's cool. I think the ideal Duke Nukem movie goes one of two ways. Either you make Idiocracy as an action movie. Here's Duke. This was when they were trying to promote Duke Nukem Forever as being like, this is a thing you're into. He kicks ass, and sometimes he says the swear. And I mean, if you're 12 and me, you think that's sort of cool, but as you get older, you learn to realize that he's kind of this sort of satire where you have to like, you can't take him seriously. You can't idolize him because he kind of sucks. Mm-hmm. So I like the idea of him being this simpleton that you're sort of rooting for. Like he's maybe kind of in the right place, but he gets everything wrong. The Terry Crews character in Idiocracy, Dwayne Elizondo Camacho Taco Bell Mountain Dew Johnson or whatever his name is. Who comes out in the House of Representatives with like an M60 and just starts firing it off. I think that is the best case scenario for a funny Duke Nukem.
Yeah.
Like if you have this character in a movie and he's actually doing, like imagine if after this scene, oh look, he's been saying the words we can't even say. Imagine he comes out and he does that. I mean, at one point I think they do make Duke Nukem president in the canon of the awful universe. Mm-hmm. But he would be like this, where he'd be like riding hot rods around. It'd be like a Kid Rock video. But you have to do that tongue in cheek. You can't do it in a way that's just like, this is the ideal you should be trying to appreciate.
Right.
Like
and it's also
pulling out a gun and firing at the ceiling in a political meeting is.
Well, and we're in an interesting time right now, right? In that we are learning lessons from the failures of a lot of our heroes. And like growing up, I was an older brother and I had younger brothers, and I taught a lot of them lessons in the way that you're not supposed to. And that was by making mistakes and teaching them, don't do what I did. Like, the reason I'm in the back of a cop car and you're not is because I screwed up. Which is like, you can inspire people through mistakes. And that's a good way of teaching almost, right? And I think Duke Nukem coming out and being this sort of antiquated relic and then learning the world from smarter people by making mistakes of his own and having other people being like, you can't really do that, creates a more endearing character that I think turns into something that is sort of likable, you know? And you get this guy who's just brutally misogynistic, and he's just this like wet fart of a man in like a tank top and like weird cargo pants. You
gotta go big and go stupid, or you gotta go home and think about what you've done. The other way you could make a good Duke Nukem movie is if you made something that's like The Wrestler, the Mickey Rourke movie that's all about this professional wrestler who was like big and huge with bravado, like Randy the Ram Jackson, and then his life really sucks. Like, it's kind of the after effect of that, and he's like, oh, like all the stuff I was doing, it didn't really work so hard, and it's sort of showing the sadder side. Imagine a live-action Wreck-It Ralph with Duke Nukem. Like, imagine that. That would be an interesting thing, and it really maybe digs into like, oh wait, this is how this character could be human. Interestingly enough, Walt Williams, who you might know as writing Spec Ops: The Line, which a lot of people consider one of some of the best writing in a game, or Battlefront 2, which came out, he tweeted about how he pitched a Duke Nukem game that took place after Duke Nukem Forever. I have this wonderful sort of series of tweets on his account there. Basically, Duke was a fat, sexist, washed-up homeless guy who couldn't understand how the world had moved on. That is the kernel of self-awareness that this needs to have.
Right.
They don't need to be. They can't do that thing where they're like, hey everybody, remember Duke Nukem? You used to love him. He's great. No, you need to be like, hey, here's why this is kind of like, you kind of have to scrap that character. Lara Croft, she works. Assassin's Creed, sure. I mean, there are plenty of ideas for game movies. Metal Gear, I'm gonna see it. There are plenty of video game movies that I think are a great idea. Detective Pikachu, hell yes. Duke Nukem, you gotta take it kind of back to the drawing board, and either you tear it up or you just kind of erase some stuff. You
Right,
know, and
and
really,
I think about it in one of my favorite movies of all time is Die Hard with a Vengeance. And if you look at John McClane at the beginning of that movie, and I referenced Bruce Willis earlier, but John McClane at the beginning of that movie is a hungover loser. He is out of shape. He's borderline out of work. They've effectively taken away his badge and his gun, and he's popping Advil because he's so drunk. His wife's left him. Everything's a mess. He's not even talking to the kids anymore. It's an absolute disaster. Nobody wants to work with this guy. And then someone out of nowhere, you know, one of the Gruber brothers, is basically like, get this guy back on the street. I want to torment him. I want to taunt him. I want him back in the spotlight so I can hurt him. Duke Nukem in this game that Walt was pitching, which was basically called Duke Nukem Dude Interrupted, is a guy that no one wants to work with. But he has to go head to head with this group of people called the PC Master Race, who are a bunch of like disgusting pig aliens. The only people on Earth worse and more vile and more crass than him. And so the cops are basically like, yeah, we gotta go into the shed and get this old Duke Nukem guy out. He's the only one that can fight them. Regrettingly, I don't want to have to do this, but here he is. Here's Duke Nukem. And Duke, along the way, will hopefully learn some lessons, and us, the audience, will learn lessons of what to do with these weird old relics of the 90s.
Yeah.
And ultimately, the game never came out, and I don't think they'll make another video game with Duke for a while. We saw that weird Duke Nukem rip-off spin-off thing that went into court.
yeah,
That top-down thing.
What was it called? Bombshell.
Yeah.
It was like, what if Duke Nukem was a sexy lady with one arm?
But, you know, now there's a significant chance that this character will return and starring rapper, wrestler, John Cena. So,
give me John Wick with aliens, but with all the sensibilities of Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah.
Give me like a guy who can't read signs.
Yeah.
But he's also got huge guns.
make Gran Torino more of an action movie, you know? Like, get weird with it. So I think there's hope for this. I don't know how it plays out, but I think there's lessons to be learned as this character gets older. Because as we're seeing a lot in the world right now, people are making a lot of mistakes, but we don't really know what to do with them afterwards. Like, we don't really have a redemption saga for any of these people yet. You can go out and make a fool of yourself on social media, say something stupid, do something stupid, but what happens to you from there? I think a Duke Nukem movie could help tell that story and inspire others to not make the same mistakes Duke's made.
My name's Duke Nukem, and I go to the bathroom, and I always wash my hands to
like
prevent
to
the
poop.
spread of foodborne illnesses.
Duke Nukem poops his pants all day long inside of the park or the public zoo. I love animals. Quick, 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 quick.
I'm the victim of a paternity suit.
That's it.
Anyway,
That's Duke Nukem. We talked a lot about that man today.
I could talk about Duke Nukem until I'm blue in the face, but
Thank you to Walt Williams for putting up those tweets the other day. You should follow him on Twitter because he's incredibly interesting. It's really cool to see a video game writer on Twitter and kind of talk about what that process is like. He actually didn't write a game for 5 years after this, so that's enough to scare anybody away from their own career. Thank you to Zeus for joining us today, and thank you to you, our audience, for watching us. We'll be back next week with Brian Flynn from Super 7. He's one of the most interesting people on Earth right now. He is running a business and an independent toy store that we got to shoot in yesterday.
super fun.
Super fun. Super 7. Go check them out.
Yeah, and tomorrow I'm going to be on a stream on IGN playing Dragon Ball FighterZ with a guy who's really good at fighting games. I'm not, but I like Dragon Ball. I like Goku. I like Trunks.
Yep.
Anyway,
And the parking
tune in for that.
aid
Yeah,
and
the driving instructors and all of them.
The guy that works at the diner, all the people you want to know.
Thank you all for watching, and we'll be back same time next week.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.